This collection of classic and Western films sort of serves as an unofficial Father's Day gift guide for 2010, in that most of these films are either war films or Westerns or Robin Hood type of movies that are going to appeal to men in general, and of course probably some fathers, especially fathers who remember some of the eras that these classic films came from. First up, we have the Louis L'Amour Western collection, which includes 3 movies adapting the popular author's works, and they are all Westerns, which is mostly what L'Amour wrote, although he did occasionally veer away from that territory. The 3 films included in this collection are The Sacketts, Conager, and Catlow. And The Sacketts is probably my favorite of the group, but that's most likely because it has Tom Selleck in it, and as longtime readers of the site know, I'm a pretty big Tom Selleck fan. It could also kind of be the Sam Elliott collection, since he appears in 2 of the films, The Sacketts and The Conager. Catlow is sort of the odd man out here. While the Conager and the Sacketts were both made in the 80s, Catlow was made back in the 1960s, and it's sort of an odd duck. It features Yul Brynner and Leonard Nimoy, of all people. And if you ever wanted to see the robot from Westworld beat up Mr. Spock, well, this is your chance. Other than that, it's not really the greatest Western I've ever seen, but it certainly is fun for completists. Now, all of these DVDs have been released previously and are available separately, so if you already have them, this collection offers nothing new, unfortunately. Had there been some new extra features or some films included that weren't already available on DVD, this would be worth more of the purchase price. But if you don't have any of the movies, or if you are a Louis L'Amour fan and you don't own the movies, then it could be worth picking up. Next up, we have the Eastwood Factor extended version. It's narrated by Morgan Freeman, and of course this is a documentary focusing on Clint Eastwood, and it was put together by film historian Richard Schickel. Now, the reason this is the extended version is the Eastwood experience was included in a shorter form in the Clint Eastwood 35 Years, 35 Films box set for Warner Brothers that came out just a few months back. This version of the film is almost 90 minutes long, and it's a nice kind of retrospective of Clint's career. You get some interview footage with Clint, you get a lot of clips from his movies, and of course you get Morgan Freeman narrating it. So if you're a diehard Clint Eastwood fan, this is sort of a fun look back at his career. If you're looking for some really deep kind of introspective new criticism on the Clint Eastwood oeuvre, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed. It's not the most deep piece in the world, but it is kind of a fun way to look back at one of, cinema's most enduring Hollywood icons of the past 50 years. Unfortunately, there are no extra features on it, except for the fact that you get extra footage from the shorter version. So as a standalone package, it's not necessarily the greatest purchase in the world, but again, could make a nice Father's Day gift if someone you know is a Clint Eastwood fan. Next up, we have the Robin Hood collection from Columbia Pictures, and it's not really a collection so much as it is 4 separate discs released at the same time, but they are all Robin Hood films, and of course they were released to tie in on the predicted popularity of the Ridley Scott Russell Crowe Robin Hood film. I almost called it Gladiator there for a minute. I wonder why. And I don't know if that movie really sparked enough interest to jumpstart sales in some kind of obscure Robin Hood films, but if it does, then here are 4 of them. What you get are a really pretty random collection of Robin Hood films, like Sword of Sherwood Forest, which is actually a Hammer Films production, starring Richard Green and Peter Cushing. Then you get The Prince of Thieves, starring John Hall and Patricia Morrison. You also have The Bandit of Sherwood Forest with Cornel Wilde and Edgar Buchanan, and Rogues of Sherwood Forest with John Derek, Diana Lynn, George McCready, and Alan Hale. Yes, that's the skipper from Gilligan's Island. Now, all of these films arrive in color, even though the artwork does make them look as if they're black and white. And they range in time periods from, the 40s to the 60s, the early 60s, and they're of varying quality. None of the films are out and out terrible. None of them are particularly fantastic either. If I had to say I enjoyed one of them the most, it would probably be the Sword of Sherwood Forest. It's nice to see a young Peter Cushing in kind of a different role for those of us who only know him as Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars. And it's a fun little film that I think kind of raises a little bit above the other ones for not taking itself so seriously. But unfortunately, none of these films can really capture the magic that Errol Flynn had as Robin Hood, yet none of them did anything different enough to really set themselves apart from what the Errol Flynn version was trying to do. So if you're a Robin Hood completist, these are pretty good discs to have in your collection. But for casual fans, you really have to kind of be in love with movies from the 40s and 50s to really appreciate these. Each disc comes with the movie's theatrical trailer, but that's pretty much it in way of extra features. Finally, we have 2 new Turner Classic Movies Greatest Classic Films collections. Now, these are really great collections from Warner Brothers, and what they are 4 movie collections that are released at a reduced price. They're generally pretty affordable, and generally you get a nice collection of films. Each one is themed. For example, this month, tying in to Father's Day, we have a war collection and a westerns collection. Now, the war collection includes Battle of the Bulge, The Dawn Patrol, Gunga Din, and Operation Pacific, which brings us stars like Henry Fonda, Robert Shaw, Basil Rathbone, Cary Grant, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and John Wayne. So you get a pretty good mix of great Hollywood people in these movies. And of course, movies like Gunga Din and Battle of the Bulge are really just kind of classic war films that you sort of have to enjoy. On the Western front, we get Chisholm, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, The Stalking Moon, and Ride the High Country, which once again brings us some big-name stars. John Wayne, Forrest Tucker, James Coburn, Chris Christopherson, Gregory Peck, and Joel McCrea. Now, Sam Peckinpah directs one of the films in this collection as well. Actually, 2 of the films in this collection. And Pat Garrett and the Billy the Kid was actually scored by Bob Dylan, who also co-stars in the film. Of course, for my money, Chisholm is probably the highlight just because it's got John Wayne in it, and I'm a pretty big John Wayne fan. But again, a pretty good random collection of Western films, most of which are available on DVD already, but this is, again, kind of a reduced price collection. 4 films for the price of these DVDs, which usually suggested retail price around $20, is a pretty good deal. You do get some extra features with these collections. It's a collection of the type of archival stuff that TCM is so good at, newsreels, trailers, stills, a couple of random featurettes here and there. So you really do kind of get the whole package. So if you like classic war films or classic Western films, and you don't mind not necessarily the super A-list titles, maybe some B-plus list titles, but who have some A-list actors in them, then the TCM Greatest Classic Movies collections are both worth your purchase.